Hey Carla, isn't it
Hi,
great to be
Nick.
back?
It's awesome to be back. What do we have today?
Well, look, we've been doing this webinar series, and can't believe we're on webinar three already. I mean, just incredible, really, really great. So we're looking at the science of soil fertility in three steps, which is going to be great. And I'll let you tell everybody later who's actually going to be joining us today. So we're really, really
Yeah.
privileged.
Oh, we are privileged indeed. We have an amazing webinar for today. I'm super excited. My nerdy side is just jumping in the chair. So I'm going to hold my horses here as much as I can. But why we don't ask the question that we always have, where are you joining us from today? Type in the chat. I'm talking with you from Corvallis, Oregon. Where are you from? Where are you today, Nick?
I'm in the UK, a very rainy UK after a bit of a heat wave. So, yeah,
Mm.
well
Awesome.
deserved rain. We need it.
Yep. I see people from Munich, Zambia, Barcelona, Lebanon, UK, Georgia, England, Illinois. Hey, surprise, surprise. It's our guests are pretty close to you, so I know you will enjoy this webinar today. So, without further ado, let's jump in. Today, we're going to talk about how to apply microbes to nurture and protect your plants. This is the third part of a four-part series, and we are super excited to dive in the deep of soil food web science and how we can make this change in the planet. Nick.
Absolutely, Carla. Yeah, well, look, uh, uh, I can't wait for this. Really, really can't wait. And look who we've got, guys. Look who we've got. We've got the one and only Adam York here with us tonight, which is absolutely fantastic. Adam, we'd like to ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam York from Jacksonville, Illinois. As you can see, I'm a farmer and with AgriBioSystems here in Jacksonville, Illinois. So I got my one of my co-pilots here with me today. Um, if you want to introduce yourself, Jake.
Jake Sorl. I've been working for Adam coming up on close to 10 years now, I think. Was just given the biology compost master title just a few minutes ago. Um, but I do a little bit of everything with AgriBio from designing stuff for the web or our product labels to making compost for our extract production. So I've got my hands
Brilliant.
with everything.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jake. I think you've undersold yourself a bit there, and so
I
have
think
you,
so
Adam. But
too.
we'll
Yeah.
we'll we'll get more information out of you guys. And I was told by Adam that Jake is the wizard of compost making. So
Yeah.
we will dig deeper throughout this next 2 hours.
Yeah.
Carla, tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here again. And as many of you know, I am the science lead and also instructor for Soil Food Lab School, having the honor to work directly with Dr. Elaine and our amazing team for 6 years now. I can't believe how fast these 6 years passed through. And I'm still getting amused every single day by how our students are so dedicated and passionate about Soil Food Web, and it's brilliant to see the amazing projects you guys are developing, including our consultants. So we are proud of each one of you guys and how you are helping us to shape the future. So I have the honor to say that Dr. Elaine herself is proud of every one of you, and together we can really shift the game. And also, I have my consultancy company, which I work in Oregon and Brazil with soil food web and environmental projects. And Nick, tell us
Yeah.
about yourself.
Thank you, Carla. So yeah, Nick Padwick co-hosting today with the amazing Dr. Carla Portugal, which is always a privilege. So I am also a soil food web consultant and farmer. So I've been farming. This will be my 43rd harvest. Gosh, it's been a very hard paper round. But absolutely loving life at the moment as I've really got into what Elaine has been teaching. So this is my 5th year doing what I'm doing. I've been a consultant and an instructor of the Sorl Food Web for nearly a year now, which has been, I don't know where that time has gone, Carla. It's just been incredible. And I've also got my own business called Wild Soils, based in the UK, but we're doing all sorts of work all over the place. So really, really excited about that and dead excited to be here with you all this evening. Carla, can we have the next slide, please?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much indeed. So, guys, listen, for those of you who've missed it, we've already had 2 amazing webinars within our series. Absolutely fantastic. And you can replay these. So we can actually, we can go back, we can look at our YouTube, and we can get on and see this amazing first webinar, Discover the Beneficial Microbes Around You. We can really get that feel of what a wonderful first webinar that was. And then we moved to a second webinar. That was a good one as well. If you could whiz it forward, please, Carla, that'd be amazing. Webinar 2, yes. Multiply Microbes and Built Soil Fertility. That was a really, really good one as well. Webinar 2. So remember to flick onto YouTube and have another look at that. And then today, Carla, if you want to flick forward.
Today, like you guys already had a bit of a sneak peek, we have Adam York and Jake Sorrell with us to talk about how to apply microbes to nurture and protect your plants. We're going to see beautiful images, I'm certain, and hear amazing stories about how they're managing more 100,000 acres in Illinois and how they're doing their magic. And we have them next week. Surprise, surprise, another
Come
amazing
on.
community house party. What they should expect there, Nick?
Well, look, house parties are always great fun, aren't they, Carla? So come and join us where we'll go into lots of breakout rooms, lots of themes within those breakout rooms. It's really great. We get to speak to some amazing people. Come and go into the rooms all the evening as well, the 2 hours we're with you, not all evening, 2 hours with you. It goes really quickly, guys, and there's so
Yep.
much amazing information shared within this forum. So the house parties are great fun, aren't they, Carla?
Yeah, and what I love about the house party is that we have the chance to hear from you guys. What are you doing? Being just part of our community, being our student, we want to hear how much fun you have outside on the field, how you're applying Soil Food Web, what else you connect with Soil Food Web in your daily basis. So please join us. Let's celebrate our community on this beautiful day. Don't forget to double check your time zone. Make sure that you're gonna click the subscribe in our YouTube channel so you're not gonna lose any link anymore. So, Nick, what should we
Yeah.
expect today?
Well, thanks, Carla. So we are going to have 60 minutes, and I think, do you know what, Carla? I reckon Adam and Jake will go over this time. And as I'm timekeeper, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let them go over slightly because I think they've got some amazing information. And then we've got a little break where everyone draws breath and has a quick drink. And then we got Q&A. So guys, please, any questions you've got for Jake and Adam, get them written down in the Q&A and we can get them opened up and fired out. And we'll have nearly an hour's worth of Q&A once we've gone through the current offer from the school.
I already had sneak peek. We have some questions pop in, but we want more. So fire up your fingers and let's hear from Adam and Jake.
All right. Thank you guys for joining in today, and hopefully we'll try to do our best presenting this. So we as a farm and as a company, we've been around since I think 2014-ish, 15-ish. We the one of the main reasons why this I got interested in this is we were farming the conventional way, and I could just see our soils were just not up to par, and I didn't know anything about soil at the time, but I could tell that things weren't really truly going in the direction that I really would like to see them. So that's kind of how we got started. So we'll kind of get into how we got started. So some of it was not great, but we've learned a lot on this journey since that time frame. So okay, so as you can see here, it says how we've transformed our approach to farming. So we moved from the conventional side of things. We were heavy anhydrous, we were heavy GMO crops, heavy Roundup, heavy everything, heavy insecticides, heavy everything that I'm kind of somewhat against, at this point in time. But so in 2014, we experienced probably one of the better years on the farm that we ever had. Had really, really good weather, um, had really good yields, but there was a limit. We were seeing yields peak. Why weren't we getting higher yields? Grain quality was okay, but it could have been better. You could just tell there were some things missing. So that's kind of when we really started finding the biological side, or started in getting into the biological side of things. We started by putting just a bug in a jug product is how we really got started. Some really good salesman sold me on it, and we used it in our starter system on our planter, and you could see it working. Um, that's kind of how we started. After that, I really started to self-educate myself, and knowing that that a bug in a jug maybe wasn't we weren't getting the whole realm, but it also kind of explained to us that our soils were in need of some biology. So we really started digging in, and actually had talked to Elaine on the phone. A partner at the time actually talked to her on the phone, and we ended up getting hooked up with Todd Harrington. And that's how we started learning about compost teas and compost extracts. Um, so we bought these old tubs. Are they in the picture, Jake?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So we bought these old tubs, and we started making compost tea. Had no idea what we were doing. We were just kind of getting some compost that we thought was good, but we were seeing some good results. And like I said, it just goes to show you that we were in need of some major changes. And I don't miss those tanks whatsoever. But let's see if we can get, is it the picture? Okay. So let me go back here. So anyways, so I guess we bought seven of these tanks, and they were compost tea tanks. And so we started doing that first. The time frame on these tanks, you only had 24 hours. You had to make the compost tea in 24 hours, and we only had a limited time to go out there and put it on with the soil, and we were having pretty good luck with it, but they were 500-gallon batches, and people we had to clean them out. So we were probably getting, 3 to 4 hours of sleep because we were constantly cleaning these things out, getting the biofilm off, and then pushing them out there. It was not a really great start to what we were going. We were seeing good results with it, but we needed something that was a little bit more streamlined, and that's kind of how we ended up getting into the extract side of things. Um, but we've made a lot of changes, a lot of facility improvements from that start, and we'll kind of go through a lot of that. But really wanted to focus on what we were really trying to accomplish, and we really needed to streamline something for the amount of acres that we did. that we crossed and had some customers that were crossing. So that's kind of the start of this journey here. So like I said earlier, weather alone didn't really ensure yield. Even when we were just doing the anhydrous and the DAP and potash, we were seeing good yields. We were spending a fortune on fertilizer, a small fortune. But there was a top end of that. So what that really got to me was we were missing on a lot of different things. Probably missing on different minerals, but also for sure missing on the biology once we just kind of understood what biology was. And at that point in time, there was not a lot of people, or at least around this area, even talking about biology, you know. So we needed to understand that. We needed to understand that the approach that we were doing, it wasn't really a systems-based approach. It was just a, NPK approach, and you might have added a little bit of calcium at the time, and that was it. That's all we were doing, and we were heavy on, obviously fungicides, insecticides, heavy tillage, heavy everything. Okay, so where we started. Here's these great barrels that I was talking about, these 500-gallon tubs. And one point in time, we had 7 of these. It was pretty miserable because we were operating out of a Quonset shed, which is hotter inside than it was outside, and is always colder inside than it was outside. So it was not great, but that's what we had to operate at the time. We already had it on the farm, so that was the space that we could use. And like the slide says here, it's we made some pretty decent teas, not really understanding what we were doing at the time, but it was very hard to scale. It was very hard to keep clean. Yeah, it was very labor intensive, and I'm surprised Jake's still sitting here next to me because him and I cleaned out these nasty things, and we were never going to be able to keep help or ever have a business if we continued down this journey. But that's all we knew at the time. Um, So we ended up actually converting these. Yeah, so we converted those. I'll go back here. We converted these tanks and we did the teas for a year, and then we were ended up with Todd Harrington's help. We ended up converting these to extractors. It was still a pain in the butt, but we ended up going to that extract side of things because that was the only way that we knew that we could scale it. And then we weren't, chopping a lot of the biology that we'd built through pumps and all that type of stuff. So yeah, I kind of dealt with this. I kind of talked about this. This is another picture of where we operated in the Quonset. You can see all the gas cans there too, because at the time we didn't have electric pumps. We had gas powered pumps. So in this Quonset, it was just more or less really loud noise. It was not ideal, to say the least. But that's what we had, and this is, like I said, one of the learning experiences that we had. But you can kind of see in this picture, uh, we kind of moved on from those tanks, and you can kind of see that's the extractor that we actually still use to this day. It is a Hornick extractor that we bought from Todd Harrington. They don't make them anymore. They were actually made. I'll give a little detail on that. They were actually made in Nebraska at one point in time, and this guy, I think his name was James Hornick, and I think you can look him up on the internet. But he had a vision back in the late '90s, early 2000s for farmers to actually use this and make compost extract for their farms. And at the time, they farmers weren't having it. He was too early, I think, at the point in time, and he kind of really got upset. But these things ended up going to golf courses and more of the landscaping industry, until we got our hands on one. I think it was in 2016 or 17. But those extractors have been a game changer, for us. And the beautiful thing is they a friend of ours had a patent, and he was able to create newer ones of these, which is great for bigger operations. I think these things will actually do like 16 to 1800 gallon a minute or an hour. I'm sorry. Um, but then we've also hooked up with Hiawassee, and they're also making small extractors, which is fabulous for smaller scale stuff. So the beautiful thing about what's going on now compared to when we started is people are starting to get into extractors. The availability of being able to do this on your own is a lot greater than what it was when we first got started. So yeah, so I guess I didn't know this was the next slide. So here's an up close picture of the compost extractor that we have. And like it says here, so we transitioned to compost extracts. It offered a lot more stability. I believe you still have to be careful with living biology, but if you're keeping this in a cool, shaded environment, the shelf life on it is really fabulous. It's a lot longer than what a lot of people think. But as here we have scopes, we're looking at it constantly. If we have it, we kind of we'll spin it after we put it in a tank and keep it in good shape. But one of the main reasons would not only that this helped us with shelf life, but it also helped us not that everything that we are making here is in the spore form. It's old dormant. It really does not come alive until we start adding some of the food sources to that. So it's going through pumps, it's going through everything that we needed to go through to get to the soil. And then our goal is to build it out into the soil with the food and let it do its thing instead of making it up in a tea, making this beautiful fungi and everything, and then chopping them with pumps and then sticking them out and hoping for great results. So yeah, so time savings was great. Cleaning was fabulous. So it was definitely the right direction to go for us. I think teas have their place just for our operation. We have definitely chosen this route. It just works better for us. I think teas have their place, but we do not use them much anymore. Okay, Jake, you want to get on this because this is kind of I've been talking a little bit about it, but why don't you chime in on some of this a little bit?
So yeah, this compost extract versus tea? What is compost extract? It's a filtered solution made from compost that contains beneficial microorganisms, but with fewer chances of rapid microbial population shifts compared to tea. It's often more stable than the tea because it doesn't need aeration and you don't have to feed it. Um, and the shelf life is much longer. So Adam kind of touched on those things. We we've had pretty good success keeping, and it's not something we do. It's not something we ever use, but we have tested the shelf life of our extract, and we've held it in tanks for months without any kind of fall off. So we've got our tanks are set up with pumps on timers, and we're able to control the shelf life that way.
Yeah, and it's been really nice. To do that. And like I said, we test it and we usually make extract for our farm and for our customers. We usually make it on demand. What we'll do, like typically, we have 10,000 gallons worth of storage here at the facility. Um, so what we'll do is we'll make it up maybe the night before, so that way when it's going out, it's able to. And we've set our customers up with 30-degree cone bottom tanks, so it's helped us to be able to actually deliver. And they got pumps and everything like that, and it's inside of a shed, so we're able to keep that stable for not only us here on the farm, but also for our customers. So in the picture here, you can see that the old tea barrel that he did use. But this is one of Hiawassee's extractors. I've known Simeon and the team for a long time. They're a great company. I think they're kind of hitting a great spot to help other people make their own extract, which I think is fabulous. These guys, we're actually a dealer for these guys, and it's we've sold several of these extractors, and everything's been going very well on that side of things for the customers and for the farmers being able to do their own. So yeah, so here is just kind of a good layout of the differences between the extract and the tea. So you can kind of see there in the middle what they're both really good at. Um, like I said, the extract is just obviously a lot longer shelf life, which is great because in this world of farming, you don't know if you're going to get rained out. You don't know every day, so the extract has been fantastic for that. And even when you do actually add the foods to it, it does take it some time really to start doing this thing. So it's just been a lot easier method for us if you do get caught with a storm or get rained out or whatever. Um, so yeah, how the extract's actually made through these extractors is it's usually made by washing or mainly just agitating the compost in water and adding extra nutrients. It's definitely simpler production. So what these extractors are is they are if you as long as you feed it, they just keep going. So you just got to make sure that you're keeping up with the compost on it. But they you can run them 24 hours a day if you want. Um, yeah, it's a more stable microbial community over time, and then obviously less risk of overgrowth and anaerobic conditions, which last thing you want to do is create something that's not good and you're going to harm yourself. So that's very, 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 very important. Um, so on the right side, you guys can see the tea. Obviously, a lot shorter shelf life. You have to be on it really quick. It's definitely a more dynamic microbial population. It's a lot more fun to look at under a scope than what extract is, but and like I said, it involves brewing, adding nutrients, food sources in the brewing process. To get whatever population you're really gunning for. So if you're gunning for more bacteria, you're going to be adding more sugar. If you're gunning for more fungi, you're going to be adding, different food sources of like kelp and fish and some other things like that. So, and it requires a lot of aeration. So the problem is with it is sometimes if you need to get it out and get it quick, it's kind of nice. You'd almost have to have trailers to aerate it and to keep it aerated and also have that aeration on your sprayer. And we have never made that move. So we just have been on the extract side of things. So, and yeah, if it runs out of food, it crashes and crashes pretty hard. So, Jake, go for it.
Uh, so diversity without quality is chaos. Quality without diversity is fragility. In biology, you need both to build resilience. So that's been a big thing for us from the very start is building diversity. The soils we're working with, or I should say, soils we started with, or some of the new customers we have come on. That's the biggest thing we see is lack of diversity. So. We bacterial dominant, but we try to push fungi. We want those fungal numbers to go up, but we also want to push diversity in that bacteria as well. So you know looking at looking at conventional soils under a microscope is about as boring as it gets. So it's cool to be able to take a field and over the course of about 3 years like see it change and actually see that diversity go up.
And that, yeah, you put a good point there, Jake, because Jake's looked under the microscope probably even more than I have. He's looked at a lot of soils around this area. People will send soil samples to us to look at, and it's really similar. Isn't there a lot of similarities? Mostly, Jake, is it's when you get a lot of these soils that haven't used biology and just been doing the conventional way, it's not a lot of diversity and it's just a lot of bacteria, wouldn't you say, for the most
Yeah.
part? I mean, it's not a lot of difference, so.
And I guess I should touch on why diversity is important, but every every microorganism out there has a different role. So um, if you've got just one, obviously there's gonna be more than one species, but if you've got all the same species out there, they're not gonna accomplish a whole lot. So you need everything out there
Yeah.
to do things successfully.
And the other thing is too, is that's why I think a lot of people, in conventional soils rely so much on the fertilizer side of things because their soils are not working efficiently and they're bypassing a lot of that and just kind of force feeding with fertilizers and that's kind of how it's been around this area. It's worked, for guys for some time. I just think a long term. Um, we have to think a little bit differently and what type of fertilizers you're using or this game that we play in farming is not easy. And the costs right now is ridiculous compared to what we're getting for our grain. So all right, so this is a funny story. So when we bought this is our first vermicompost. um what do you call it? I guess it's like a
Bed.
Yeah, just a bed, I guess. So, anyways, so we bought this. This actually came from one of Todd's friends out in California, and they shipped it to us in Jacksonville, Illinois, on a car moving trailer. It was odd, but that's how we ended up getting it. It actually came from, I think Santa Barbara. I don't remember. No, no, actually, it came from Malibu. That's exactly where it came from. So, anyways, this is our first one. It's a 16 footer by 4 foot, I think. And this is how we got started. We put it, as you can see, the tractor in the background. Before we built the new shed, we actually had it in our shop. So it was 60 degrees most of the time. And the worms did okay, but there was a lot of vibration. We were always working on equipment and stuff, and it wasn't the best place for it. We would also actually have to replace worms. At the end of the day, in the winter time, they would kind of die off, and we would always have to buy more to kind of. It wasn't the most efficient way. So when we built this new shed, we put it in a room that's controlled. It's 72 degrees all the time, and that seems to be where the worms love it the best. And we don't have the fall off. You don't have to add the worms. It's been great, but like I said, we wanted to make our own. Todd Harrington was a big part of that. He taught us how to make our own vermicompost because a lot of the outside sources that we were getting weren't really that good. And we didn't want to have to rely on getting it from somebody else. We wanted to have control over that. Um, because we wanted to make the best compost that we could possibly make for what we were trying to accomplish for not only our farm but for our growers as well. So then we bought this. This was the compost turner. So then we learned how to make, so not only were we learning how to make vermicompost, we were also learning how to make thermophilic compost, which a lot of this, when we first started this, was, we didn't know how to do it. So that's why we ended up hiring Todd Harrington to help us. We paid for a lot of his mistakes. We've made a lot of our own, as well, but we were doing that. So what the what the what the goal was trying to find as much local material. Obviously, try to find as much free material as you could. And we don't have all free material, but we're able to get all the local leaves from the city of Jacksonville, which is awesome. And then we were able to get a lot of wood chips. We get a lot of straw, hay, alfalfa, but we get a lot of organic dairy cattle manure, some chicken manure. So we do have to buy some things, but we're fortunate to get a lot of it just delivered to our compost site and dropped off, which is great. It took a few years to get that going, but the good thing is no matter where you're at, I think anybody can do this. You just try to figure out everybody's always chopping trees, so the wood chips are easy. Some guys will have just old bales of straw, whatever, that are easy. Guys just want to get rid of them. Sometimes you can pay for them. Depends on what you're looking for. The leaves usually. Cities are definitely always looking for a place. Whoever sacks their leaves up and puts them on the edge, we get them all. And there's so much nutrients and a lot of goodies in the leaves. So that was the reason why we got this turner. We still have this turner today. And it also just gave us control of making that side of things as well. So. So yeah, so when we first started this, we were getting a lot of food from the food pantry. We just get whatever we could to help, with this process. You can see this is this has actually made some of the better compost that we've ever probably, I mean, not ever seen, but it's made some really good stuff when we first got started. This on the picture on the right is actually a bunch of Asian carp that they would take out of the rivers around here, and it made great compost. They do have a head bone on there that you cannot compost. That's the one thing that you will have these fish bones that will kind of roll around in it. But it did make some really, really good compost. But we ended up starting to get away from the food pantry because, of some of the grocery stores and stuff like that would spray certain things on them. So we kind of started getting away from that. And we went to building our own greenhouse. So, which was fun. Jake and guy Branson did a lot of this build, but there was a place here in town that went out of business, and we bought the greenhouse, took it down, brought it over here at the farm, and started growing our own food. And so the food we also ate, but we also obviously produced way too much. So we would actually take this food, put it in the freezer, and then we would chop it all up, and then we would actually feed it to the worms. And it was great. It really worked good. It was just a little bit more labor. It was, obviously labor intensive. We still have the greenhouse. We still grow stuff in there. We don't grow as much for the food or for the worms anymore, but we mainly do actually cover crops. So now on that worm bed, we started growing cover crops on top of the worm beds. And then what you do, which has made life a lot easier, is you're getting all the exudates and stuff out of the cover crops when you're growing this vermicompost. And then what we'll do is we have like they're almost like thermal, what do you call those things? They're like almost like insulation, like insulation.
Pink board
Yeah,
or
pink board. So you get the cover crops will get up a certain height, and you get a good diversity in there, and then you'll lay this insulation board over top of it, which will kill the cover crops, and it helps keep that moisture in there. And then what we do is then we take that thermophilic compost after those cover crops are dead and broke down and the worms are kind of eating it, then we'll add more on there, and then you're growing that food for the worms right there in the bed. And it's been a great game changer for us. It's just a lot less, and you're growing everything right there on the beds themselves. It just became a lot more efficient for us. Um, so through this whole process with the extracts and trying to really uh upgrade our soil, we really started getting into cover crops. I've had plenty of mistakes with cover crops. I still have mistakes with cover crops, but at the end of the day, we are gearing up. I got away from cover crops for like 2 years, and it was, you could tell the difference. I will never do that again. I think cover crops are a huge, huge, huge part of building your soil. The great thing is you can spray your extract over top of your cover crops. You can spray the extract on like your corn stalks to help break that down, and then you plant your cover crops over top of it. You can also treat your cover crop seed with compost extracts. There's just a million things that you can do to help really improve that soil, but I believe that cover crops are a big part of going forward. For our farm for sure. Plus now there's companies out there that are actually paying you to do that. So it's a no-brainer. Okay, some changes we made here. So, all right. So out of not operating in the Quonset shed anymore, which was horrible. So in 2020, it was right in the middle of COVID. We we decided that this was our destiny to go down this route. So we started putting a little bit of money behind it because if we were going to do this, we weren't going to want to operate out of that Quonset shed for the rest of our career. So we built a shed. And then this was the first part of it. This is just kind of the process, which is it was going to give the worms a lot better home, a more controlled environment. It was going to give we were able to do everything in one location instead of multiple. This was the first part, and the first part we built, and it ended up being too small, so we had to build more. So, um, but yeah, so Jake, you want to talk a little bit about the vermicompost beds because we've kind of added some, and yeah.
Yeah, so the new shops that we operate out of, the worms have their own room. It's climate controlled. We've got heated floors, we've got air conditioning. They have irrigation above all of them as well. Um, and then you can see the covers in the one photo there, how we approach the cover crops with the worm beds. We'll just um,
Yeah.
sprinkle lots of seed. It
Mhm.
varies. A lot of times it just depends on whatever seed we've got around. But
And a lot of times, it's a lot of the
and
same seed that we'll plant on our farm as well. And you can kind of see the lights up on top there. So when we plant the seed, we'll leave the lights on, and then it helps the plants grow and it gets them up and gets them going real quick. But this has been a game changer for us by doing this. We've talked to a lot of people. I think there's some other people out there maybe starting to do some of this, but I really, really, really think it's if guys are getting into vermicompost, the growing the cover crops on top of it it's been great. It
it,
really has.
it's such an easier. It's so much easier to feed them.
Yeah,
It makes the process
and they
that much
love it.
better, and that yeah
Hmm.
they enjoy it. It helps hold the moisture in the top. These beds aren't. They're the best way for getting bulk compost. Like if you want to make a lot of compost, this is the way to do it. Um, but as far as quality, I think there's probably easier ways. Moisture is a really hard thing with these, but the cover crops seem to really help hold that moisture in. So
Hmm.
um,
And then we've also kind of started going into these boxes. So, and this has been kind of fun too. And guys that want to make it on a smaller scale, or if we just need to make more, because what we have been doing as a company is we've been selling more of these extractors, Hiawassee extractors, and people are always looking for good quality compost. So we've really had to upscale making vermicompost. So we have looked into these boxes, which actually work really good, don't they?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if and you can kind of stack them on top of each other. It doesn't take out as much room. I mean, so we do a little bit of both. But this is another way that people. I think we bought these boxes on Uline or something. There's.
When the ones pictured are all pro boxes for seed, but we recently switched to a produce style crate that they're collapsible. They stack really well.
Mhm.
And they've got there's doors that you can open up that it makes it a lot easier to shovel out of.
And then that insulation board, you can just cut that insulation board for the tops of those, and you can lay that on top of your cover crops, and that will help keep the moisture in there, but it'll also kill them, so the worms can eat through them. So, and then you want to talk about the millipedes a little bit too?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago we started messing around with millipedes on a small scale, and it's still pretty small, but
Hmm.
we there's not a whole lot of information out there about composting with millipedes. There's not really any information out there.
No.
So we've been just kind of experimenting, and it's been a fun process. But the compost they create is amazing. It's
Mm.
fungal and super diverse. They're hard to keep happy though. They we found that combining them with worms, we get the best results. So mixing the red wigglers with the millipedes, we're able to make some pretty cool stuff. So
But if somebody's looking for a high fungal compost, that's you can get it through millipedes. Yeah, it's crazy high.
and
So,
that's mainly due to the feedstock. They're
hmm.
eating heavy carbon feed, so um, they like wood chips and leaves and things that are full of carbon. So
Okay, so obviously you guys seen a picture of the extractor. So this is kind of the tanks. This is kind of our setup at our new shed here. So more or less we have four rows of the white tanks, as you guys can see on the left, and then four rows or four tanks of on the blue tank. So the blue tanks are water coming in. That's where we have our water. We do treat our water with fulvic acid. And then the white tanks is where our extract is actually where it goes into after it's made. Jake actually designed this whole thing. It's actually a huge like horseshoe built out of wood around it where you can actually get up on top of the stairway there and you can actually get in there and clean your tanks, and it's made it really handy. Nobody has to get on ladders. And you can really clean your tanks. You can really see what you got in there. You know, you can see it coming out. It's a great concept, but yeah, it's a giant horseshoe.
Every tank has its own pump, and every pump is on a variable speed drive. So we're able to control the speeds. And they're not only are they on a drive, but they're also on a timer. So we can run the timer in the middle of the night when nobody's there. The pump can kick on, run for a certain speed for a certain length of time, and then switch to another speed if we need it to. So it can get the product vortex in and then knock it down to where it just holds that speed and then shut off, and it makes the work a lot easier. We don't have to worry about it. So flip the switch before we leave at the end of the day, and we know that it's gonna be taken care of. So
Yeah, it's been good. Jake, you want to get into this? So we've started getting into seed treatment, and using some of the biologicals on seed treatment. I think that's a great way to get it out on the seed. I believe extract needs to be with the seed. I think it's a really great way to get it out there. Some people are going to put it on. I do both. I do it on the seed and we put it on with our planter through the extract. But some people don't have some farmers don't have that option or don't want to spend the money to buy the starter or don't want to mess with it. So this is another option, is to get it out there. But I do believe that when you want to start this process, I think biology in the fall helping break down residue is a really good way to get started. And then in the spring, I just believe that it needs to be on the seed or close to the seed for sure.
yeah, it's a super easy, low cost way of getting biology into the system because everything starts with the seed. So it's
Yeah.
um,
And we have a seed treatment called In Depth. Jake actually created this seed treatment, but it's a combination of the biology and minerals all in the same, which is it's been great. We've been looking at a lot under the scope. We've been digging plants, and so far it really looks really good. So it's been a lot of fun too. You know, trying to give that plant, give that seed exactly what you think it needs, right at the get-go. So it's been good. We kind of touched on this, I guess, but yeah, go ahead. I mean, because the quality control, on all this is really, really big.
yeah. So we're trying to get those microbes working as soon as possible. And um, I will say the millipede compost has, because we're making such a small quantity, but it's quality stuff. We've been using a lot of it with the seed treatment. We'll make a slurry, and it goes a lot further that way, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's nice if you're making small like amounts of vermicompost or like high quality stuff with like the millipede compost where you're not gonna make a lot to scale, that it's a lot easier to scale it on a seed treatment because you're just using micro doses, for the most part, and you can get it across a lot of acres a lot better and more efficiently. So yeah, so here is a picture of one of our planters. We actually don't have this planter anymore, but we you can kind of see that this picture on the left is a truck with a tank. We usually have like 1,600-gallon tanks. We load up the extract here. We'll actually load up the food sources, whatever food sources that we are using. A lot of it's stuff we make here. We have a couple of products, Dual Start B and Dual Start F, and then we add a lot of fish with it. So what we are doing is we're pumping that together and we're bringing it out, loading the planter. And it is going on pretty much right in furrow as we are planting through. Um, you can see in that picture planting through the cover crops, and it's been a great setup. One thing about the well, we found that putting the extract on through the planter is one of the best things that we have done. Pumps, we've used diaphragm pumps, we've used the wheel-driven pumps, but the orificeless tubing has been so important for us. Instead of a orifice with a tiny little hole in it, it's a tubing that's 8 foot long and it's usually coiled up, but it's a bigger orifice, so it kind of helps you let some of that extract, that pulpy stuff through, which is the good stuff. So you kind of want that, but that orificeless tubing's been a game changer for anybody that's wanting to use extract on their planters and in furrow. So yes, we also use it on foliar applications. We'll use it through irrigation pivots. We'll try to use anytime that we can use biology, we're trying to. So the beautiful thing is too is some of the minerals that we do sell, you can mix some of the extract with certain minerals. We look at all this under scopes. There's certain minerals you shouldn't use and certain products out there that you shouldn't use. It's too high salt, not the right. Just not the right. But what we've been really doing is been using biologicals with the minerals because I believe it makes it so much more efficient. And I don't think you have to use as high a doses of minerals with the biology because it is so efficient. Um, but like in this thing says, you got to make sure that you're staying clean, you're cleaning out, you're doing all this stuff because you do not want that stuff. I mean, you're dealing with living organisms, so you want to make sure at the end of the day you're flushing with water. You're doing these things to help make sure that you're putting out a high quality product and a high quality foliar because the cleanliness of all this stuff because you are dealing with live organisms that you really need to be on it. Like it says here, by maintaining clean tanks, good agitation, and proper ventilation, we've improved, the surface coverage, delivered healthy microbiology, and supported healthier crops. And it does make a big difference, a really, really big difference, I think. And really, through this whole process, we've tried to be a lot more on the um, proactive side of things versus the reactive side of things. So trying to keep your crop healthy, trying to do that through the season instead of having to be reactive and have to use, insecticides or fungicides or certain things like that. That's been kind of the main goal and trying to understand that through leaf testing and any type of testing that you can to try to stay ahead of it instead of get behind it and then have to do something you don't want to do. So we've kind of talked a little bit about this residue digestion. I think this is a huge part of this. There's a lot of minerals in the stover. And I think if you can properly break them down with biology and some food sources, you can recycle those nutrients right back into the soil. Um, I believe that it also helps with, controlling diseases, pathogens, stuff like that may harbor or overwinter into your soils. And yeah, Jake's got a picture of some mushrooms here, which is great. So, before we started doing this, I never saw a mushroom in my field ever, and now you start applying biology and you start doing some pretty cool stuff. You'll walk out there and you get a little bit of moisture and you just got mushrooms popping up all over the place. That's a good sign. But um, yeah, so as it says here, we just kind of really accelerated the breakdown of the crop. And this process increases soil organic matter and fosters, the mushrooms and earthworms. That's also fantastic because, if you can bring those earthworms back in the soil or just keep those babies happy in your soil, I mean, they're making vermicompost all day long and it's not costing you anything. It's doing it all for free. You just got to make sure you get them there. And the one thing about what I've learned about worms through this whole process is if they do not like the environment, they will not be there. So that is a good way to know that if you do have worms, that you are promoting a environment for them to want to live in. But if you don't, then you might have to look at maybe some things that are a little bit different because they just will not be there. They just won't put themselves in that situation. So, Jake, you're up.
Um, yeah, when we first started implementing cover crops, we didn't really do a whole lot of diversity. We've learned a lot more about how we're selecting our covers and when you know what follows what and how we're terminating them and just better practices so that we're getting the most bang for our buck from the covers themselves.
Yeah, because I think everybody lives in different areas, and you're trying to get growth, and sometimes we're harvesting until the end of October, so sometimes that's a little bit different. Sometimes maybe the only thing that you can get to grow is wheat or rye or something, but the diversity, in my opinion, is huge. For us, we try to do the diversity earlier, as the earlier we harvest this. Is when we're going out there with maybe a little bit more diversity, something because you got a little bit more time. A couple things that we're wanting to get into in the future is like we've started getting into wheat. I think diversifying some of your crops is been a benefit, but we're gonna add a little tillage radish with our wheat this year. So the tillage radish will die off in the winter, but I think it will also help release some more minerals and nutrients to that wheat, when it comes out of dormancy there in the spring. Um, and then I've heard of some guys doing some, frost seeding some clover into some wheat. So I think those are a few things that we're going to try. And then also maybe doing a little bit of clover and some corn. So we've talked with a couple of the guys that we work with through AgriBio. Yeah, so those are some things that we're kind of on the journey of learning a little bit more about going forward. But like I said earlier, I really do believe these cover crops are a huge part, or in just the diversity of crops is just a huge part of really improving soil and keeping that cover on the soil. Yeah, like we were talking earlier, Nick, we all have had some mistakes. I've had plenty of those. I've really screwed up a few things with cover crops. I've learned a lot of hard lessons, but I think I learned them, so that's the beauty of it. But like anything, we all do fail. We're human. And not every step's easy. It's still not easy to this point. I mean, we've learned a lot. We've made processes easier, so we've gotten better. But like it says here, mistakes have taught us a lot of valuable lessons. As long as you learn from those lessons, and then just really, it helps you to resolve and innovate and improve our process and really just kind of improve what we're doing. I mean, I think at the end of the day, when we're trying to get over several acres, we have to try to be as efficient as possible, but try to be as streamlined as possible, but really still do the right things, and try not to overcomplicate the process. I think when we first started, it seemed like a complicated process because it was a lot different. But I think going forward, now that we understand a lot more, that we do understand that we just need to try to make it simple. Don't overthink it and just kind of do what you know is right and just do the best you can. And I think going forward, that's kind of what we're trying to hit a little bit more. Okay, we'll do this.
Sure. From experiments to execution, we started with trials, mistakes, and learning by doing. Over time, we developed repeatable systems. The next slides are going to highlight, which I think we might have taken a few of these out. Let's see. Yeah, I think we just touch on quality. We shortened it for time, but um, quality is everything. That's, we sell products. We want to make sure that everything we're doing is quality. That's part of the reason we try to control a lot of what we've done. We want to know exactly where it comes from and how it's made and um but Water quality is super important. A lot of our products start with water. Foliars, the carriers is predominantly going to be water. So water quality is definitely super important. Um,
Yeah, and one thing that I always wanted to ensure because I use a lot of these products on our own farm, so like Jake said, quality is super important. I think if you have high quality things, you don't have to use as much. Our focus has not been so much of, our focus has only been really quality and making really, really good products because, and testing these because, like I said, I farm with my family, and the last thing I want to do is use cheap products that don't work, So at the end of the day, we've put a lot of time and effort into what we do um, because because we're using them and we want them to be great, So um, we take a lot of time and effort to do that to make sure that we're using the best of our abilities, to use these things. So. But like I said, here we do a lot of regular testing. We're always testing. We're always checking to make sure everything's good. We do a lot of trials. We have a farm that we can do a lot of trials on, so we're learning a lot. So when we do create products or we're checking out different biology or doing whatever to try to improve stuff, we're always trying to improve. So we'll send DNA tests off to on our biology, and if there's some things in there that we think that we need to have, whatever, we'll try to figure out how to add them, and just anything like that we're always just trying to continually get better. Um, so yeah, so why we stayed on course. From where our soil was when we first started this to where it is now, we still have a long ways to go. I've made a lot of mistakes, through this journey. I've learned a lot. I feel like sometimes the only way I do learn is by making mistakes, um, but it is the economics are a lot better. It's a better culture. We have a lot more fun, trying to do different things. We're not messing with insecticide or any of that stuff. I've told stories, many times that we used to use it. I mean, I hopped in a planter, I couldn't feel my legs for 6 hours. It's like I'm done with this, So, um, and I have 4 children, so I want to leave. Yeah, I think everybody should want to try to leave it better for the next generation. And that's our goal here as well, and to help other people to achieve those same goals. But through the economic side of things, I mean, we have been able to save some money, and it's been a good thing. So, but yeah, everybody needs to understand why we're doing it this way, not just what to do. A biological system isn't a plug and play. It takes diligence, precision, and trust. And through this, you learn so much. You're so much more educated. But like these missteps, like cleaning or doing any of this stuff affects the whole system. I mean, you could be doing something that is harmful instead of encouraging to what you're trying to accomplish. And like I said, here at AgriBio, we have a really great team. And when it's aligned, and as a business itself, it seems to thrive. But as everything's aligned on the soil and growing crops, the system thrives. So quality is huge. Um, so yeah, so effort versus return. So the greater the effort, the greater the payoff. So implementing a biological system isn't the set and forget. It demands careful monitoring, quality checks, regular cleaning, and proper application timing. Um, it's more steps to maintain, but we have a crew to help do a lot of that stuff. A lot of guys, if they understand that on their own farm, that they pay attention to these little details here. But the long-term ROI is I believe is a lot greater than a little bit of time it takes to clean and make sure that you're doing things right. Because in this business, profit margins are not very good. So we have to be diligent and try to be educated and understand that what money we are spending on the farm and why we're doing it, and understand that whole process. And if you're going to spend, if you got, a certain amount of money to spend, what's number one, what's number two, what's number three, and I believe the biology side of things is a huge part of it because it helps make everything else a lot more efficient. Um, yeah, and building the system. So over time, as the experience grows, it becomes routine and the efficiencies increase, just like what we talked about here. And even on the farm, same thing. It's, as you go through some of these processes, you try to simplify it and you try to make the efficiencies just a lot greater. So yeah, economic returns. So I was getting into that a little bit. So we were doing excessive tillage, which, obviously costs a lot of money and fuel. We do a lot more limited tillage. We do some no-till. Depends on the farm. We do some no-till. We do um, a little bit of tillage. But we've also switched from GMO to non-GMO. And as you guys can see there, those are some of the premiums. It depends on every year, um, what those premiums are, but that's a range. Some years are better than others. Um, On soybeans, we've taken all the seed treatments off. We've put our biological seed treatments on those. Some people I know through the grapevine have, for their bean and their treatment, will have, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to $100 in their seed. And if you get naked seed and get non-GMO seed, you can save a significant amount of money on that. Like I said, the cover crop programs, a lot of those are starting to come around this area, which are adding additional income to help build your soil. So I think it's a great thing. Some people might argue with me on that, but I believe it's a great incentive to get farmers to go out there and keep some cover on the soil. Um, so nitrogen has been a big deal. So a lot of times guys are growing on their corn crops or doing a 1-to-1. Right now, rough figures, nitrogen is about 50 cents a unit. So if you're putting on 250 pounds, that's roughly $125 an acre. If you're able to cut that, obviously you can cut that. That's going to be a significant savings. Some people are, all the way down to 120. It depends. Some people are still around that 140, some are around 180. It's still at the end of the day, I think with utilizing the biology and making everything more efficient with the mineralization and everything like that, and maybe different timings of nitrogen applications where you're doing it in the spring and through the season instead of maybe in the fall, that you're not so susceptible to loss and you can use less. And the biology just makes it a lot more efficient. So replacing a lot of these acidic fertilizers like DAP and potash and anhydrous, things with, like, if a guy, I think you still kind of want to pay attention to some fertility. The biology makes it so efficient. But, like, using more natural fertilizers, if you are going to use fertilizers, some manure, compost, soft rock phosphate is one. And then, yeah, just being proactive on the biology, it eliminates a lot of fungicide and insecticide. So, like what we were talking earlier, we've been doing a lot of things on the farm where we're adding like a calcium, boron, silica, and we're adding a biological with that, and it seems to be really helping the plant health. And being more proactive on these things versus being reactive, like we talked about, and having to do a fungicide or an insecticide. So I've done fungicide applications over my time, and it seems like these applications, a lot of people were blindly just putting them on. And fungicide, it seems like, they have a window, 10, you're lucky, 14 days maybe. And the first thing that comes back in is the bad stuff. So I've experienced that. So I've seen that with my own eyes, and there's places where guys, um, will have to do that if the crop's not maybe, into that, but we really try to not do it. But also, like I said, try to be proactive with these things. And if you can eliminate a lot of these things, but you have to be out in the field and you have to check these things. You have to understand really what's truly going on, and it makes a big difference. And if you do that, you can save that application costs, you know. The other problem is, like, at least around this area is, and I get it, I understand, I know a lot of people that fly planes and stuff, but they're flying a lot of this stuff on when it's, 95 degrees, and the efficiency of that is not great, so I think there's a lot of different ways that you can do things, and be a lot more efficient. And we're forced to be efficient because prices are just not really that favorable, in today's world. All right, Jake, you're up.
So Adam kind of touched on the um, being proactive, trying to get ahead of things. Um, so in the past, Adam's Farm and conventional guys in general, they just make blanket applications. Every acre is getting the same thing, and that's that. Where now we do a ton of sap testing, so we're constantly pulling leaves, sending them off, and basing these applications on the sap results. So we're applying what we know the plant needs, and instead of wasting money, just throwing product away because the plant doesn't actually need it. We keeping the plant healthy prevents disease pressure. Kind of touched on that. One thing Adam's seen over the years is change in weed species and pressure. Going from a bacterial dominant to a more balanced soil, you really start to see the weeds change. So he's battling different weeds than his neighbors, because the soil is completely different. And we believe in the feed the soil, feed the plant philosophy. So we've seen yields maintain the same or increase with these changes, um, all while spending less money doing it. Healthier soil, and the management when it comes to weeds is different as well. So
Yeah, so we kind of touched base a little bit on this. I won't get too crazy on it, but you guys can kind of see, on that, just kind of the the reductions in certain things, and just being proactive versus reactive. I think that's the biggest thing with this. And when you do change, and when you're wanting to change, you just need to make yourself, you gotta check fields. You gotta see where you're at. You gotta test. You gotta do a lot of these different things. But when you do that, it helps you make better decisions, I believe, as well. So.
I'll say I don't come from an ag background originally, and one thing that I found like shocking when I started working for Adam, um, is the amount of farmers that either don't have a budget or they just yeah they don't pencil anything out. So like at the end of the day, ROI is everything. Like it's really easy to go out and grow 300 bushel corn, but it's going to cost you to do it. But to do it responsibly and to be able to, you know, um, it's all about that ROI. Like at
Mhm.
the end of the day, yield is important, but it's what you spent to get there. And I think if you can do it in a better fashion, then um,
Yeah, and I think the more educated you can kind of gather yourself on the biology side, even on the mineral side, just helps you make better decisions going forward. And I mean, it's definitely, anytime somebody changes or is making a change, it can be scary at times, but you got to know in your heart, and you got to, if you're educated on the subject, you can do a lot of these things and have some good results. So. So yeah, so this here, regenerative versus conventional. So this is kind of just a cost comparison here, in the world that we live in here in Central Illinois. It kind of shows you the difference, costs in like some of the GMO stuff versus the non-GMO, and then utilizing, fertilizer. So there's different ways to approach the fertilizer. I know that there's some guys that will use DAP and potash because it's close. You know, but like, even just adding humic acid to that helps buffer the acidity of that. But you can kind of see through here. I won't touch on it too long because I know we're getting close on time, but you can kind of see where if you're planting non-GMO, you're getting more premiums. The savings on the bag is a lot cheaper. And then if you're able to cut your nitrogen use down, there's significant savings there. But when you add biology into the system, you're making what fertilizer you already have in the soil more efficient. So it just, it's able to feed that plant in the form that it needs to. It breaks that bond. But when you don't have much biology in your system and you're just force feeding it with fertilizer, then guys will need to use fertilizer to continue to make profits. But there's been a lot of fertilizers been spread over the years on a lot of these farms that if you're using the right biology, a lot of that will release it. But I think you just have to pay attention to your levels, like I said, test and know what you can cut and what you can't, and um, because what works for me doesn't work for everybody. But I think that we've done a lot of different things where we've been able to see a significant savings there. So. ROI over yield. So bushels matter, but profit per acre matters more. So that's kind of what we've always focused on is ROI. Over time, before we started this, we were spending a lot of money on fertilizer. We were creating a lot of bushels, but at the end of the day, we were still spending a lot of money doing that. Looking for different markets. I think we all need to be looking at growing different types of crops, more like food and stuff. I wish there was a lot of different markets out there. I think if somebody got into different markets in the United States, it would be a great thing for a lot of different farmers. But lower input costs, you cut out a lot of different things that are harmful for soil. So, we're looking at more of things that go along with the lines of helping improve the biology, help improve aggregate structure, all of those things. So looking for different multiple streams, the premiums, the cover crop programs, anything that you can do to help boost your income and still improve your soil at the same time is a win. And the system becomes more resilient over time. So this does take time. Obviously, try to reduce as much chemical to everybody, around even your soil, and then um, and like I said, a lot of this food that we do grow, a lot of our stuff, Ben's that is non-GMO, it ends up getting overseas, but a lot of ours goes to Mexico, or Japan. But still, at the end of the day, a lot of it's going to cattle or going to something. So you're trying to um, build better. Whatever you're growing, you're trying to make it healthier. So that's the whole goal. Building soil health, creating systems for our children that can inherit and improve, and providing sustainable methods that can be profitable. That's the goal. So conclusion, so building the system. So compost extract is the core. That's our foundation. That's kind of how we get this whole process started. And infrastructure, what we did enables us to scale. We've kind of figured out how to scale this thing. And that's what we're here for, to help other people do that. That's what we have a lot of fun with because, I think it's great if we can do it. I think a lot of other people in other areas can do the same thing. But like it says here, quality control is yeah, it's non-negotiable. I mean, you have to understand that you're dealing with living things. You have to be very careful in cleaning and all that. And like I said, living soils are paying off. When the soil is living, it can provide more to whatever's growing on that soil. It's very difficult if you're going to have to go out there and apply fertilizer. You're making these foliars and you're just trying to force feed it. It's we don't have enough time in the day. We would have to be doing that all the time. But if we can get the soil to do these things for us, it's the easiest way to go. So that's kind of what we're shooting for. So is that it? Getting close. I know we're
Brilliant.
running out of
We've
time
only
here.
got literally a couple of minutes, Adam.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
afraid.
I'm gonna bust through this here real quick then. So
Go for it.
Looking ahead, so obviously we talked about optimizing cover crop rotation. We think that that's, the diversity of crops, cover crops is big. Um, we refine the compost recipes here, refine application to sync better with crop. Let's see here. Expand. We've kind of touched on all this. I think that's it. All right, there we go.
Brilliant. Guys, that was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Adam. We
Yeah.
really appreciate your time. Just really, really good stuff. So much information for us to digest. And I think it will take us a bit of time to do so.
Yeah.
So while we're taking a breath and having a bit of a drink, Carla, let's play the video.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to share the screen again to make sure that the sound will go fine. So give me 1 second here. So like Nick said, while you take a breath, let's watch a quick video about the promo that ends today.
Some of the farmers working with soil food web consultants around the world are seeing remarkable results.
Just within the first 3 years of working with these folks, they saved over $1 million just by cutting back on synthetic fertilizers, going from 200 units of nitrogen per acre down to 150 to even 50 units of nitrogen with the same, if not a better yield, which is really exciting.
If we look at the fertilizer savings across 1 hectare, we're looking at about $1,000 in savings. And then when we look at the increased revenue from the yield increases, we're looking at about $504. So the gross margin was increased by about $1,500. And then if you extrapolate this over 200 hectares, we're looking at about $300,000 over the course of any given year.
You can see the average again, 72%. And if you just take a few of those examples, you can take celery or you can take kale, you can see that we reach over 100% of yield increase.
Basically, the weight gain again was like 25% or more. The only complaint they got was the client wasn't used to obviously bailing as often because the crop is growing so much better and so much healthier. They went from 280 to well over 400 sacks an acre. So that's 42% increase, which is really impressive. I mean, dollars and cents wise, that's a big jump. The Ps were really amazing. They were really aggressive with some of the P projects. 136% increase. That's pretty impressive.
With the Regenerative Farmer Package, you can register for the Soil Food Web Foundation courses with Dr. Elaine Ingham for just $31.99, saving over $1,800. Plus Stage 1 of the Grower Training Program worth $2,000 for free. Register before midnight July 17th to take advantage of the early bird discount and save an additional $200. There are only 50 places available in the summer 2025 registration cycle, so please don't delay. At the Soil Food Web School, we are so confident in the quality of our courses, we proudly offer a 100% risk-free guarantee. Here's how it works. From the date of your registration, you'll enjoy a 30-day window with a no questions asked money-back guarantee on the total price you've paid for our courses. The only condition is that you cannot have watched more than 32 lectures of the foundation courses. Your satisfaction is our priority, and we stand behind our commitment to your success. Finance options are now available, so you can pay at your own pace with a firm. We look forward to welcoming you to the Soil Food Web community.
Yeah, it's this kind of videos always bring so many good memories.
Great. Well, guys, we've had a break. Certainly, I'm sure.
Carla, you're gonna have to change the screen yourself. It doesn't have the same link as before. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you so much, Sammy. And we appreciate your patience, people.
Good
So-
job. We've got a good backup crew, Carla.
Yes, we love them, right, Nick?
Absolutely, we do. Lifesavers, all of them. Guys, thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I'm sure we've all been blown away by how much you've achieved and what you're doing. So thank you very much indeed for your time. Now we come on to some questions, and we've got a panelist discussion here on this one first. So, compost extract versus compost teas. Gosh, Carla, how many times have we had this conversation?
And we still can take hours and hours on that,
Yeah,
right, Nick?
absolutely. In what situations would you recommend using a compost tea instead of an extract? Adam, where are you on this?
Well, I'm a big extract fan, but I think if you're going to use tea, I think usually using it on a foliar. Obviously, what we didn't talk about a little bit on foliars is, what time of day, making sure that you're using it, when it's cool, usually in the evening or, first thing in the morning. That's what I recommend if somebody wants to use a tea. Extracts, I like using them how we use them, is in the soil on the seed, through irrigation pivots. We use them as foliars as well. We've kind of got away from teas, but that I think they still have their place. What's your opinion, Jake, on that?
Yeah, I think if the scale you're farming at allows it, if you're doing a foliar, if you're applying to the plant, I think a tea is a better option.
I think it's great. Yeah.
I think if you're doing a soil application, I would go with an extract. But the scale we're at, it would be almost impossible.
Yeah, for us, and why I say that, because we have farms that are 50 miles away from where we're at here. You could do this one that's really close to the shop here, or a few around here, and and it would work out really, really well. But I do believe that just making sure that when you're getting that tea off, a lot of people are just doing tea and they're just draining it right into something that they're going to spray it on, and it works fabulous. For us, we have to go through a trailer pump and then to a sprayer pump, and it's not as efficient for us that it is for some people, especially on a smaller scale.
And certainly in the UK, I would absolutely endorse exactly what you guys have just said. And we're lucky enough, Adam, to be able to apply it when we're seeding. So we're putting on about 200 liters, whatever that is a gallon, 200 liters per hectare of an extract.
Gallon, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and with every 8 hectare that we plant, and I normally put a bit of fish or a bit of humic or fulvic down the spout with that. And I kind of tend to stay with extracts because I find them a lot easier to manage. And if I do quite a lot of drenching, so we're with extracts. We're on sands and silts, a little bit of clay, but just basically sands and silts. So, and I think I've seen so many people in the UK talk about teas and not really understanding what a tea is. It's just an expression. But I've seen them go wrong so many times, going anaerobic, maybe putting too much food in them, and they're overcooking straight away within an hour. They're going anaerobic. So I think it's safer to do an extract than it is to do a tea if you know very little about it. I think once you get into the detail and you've had a bit of experience, I think teas are good. But for me, it's a compost extract that I call a live compost extract, where I literally, as I'm going out, and I think you said you do the same, literally as I'm going out of the gate, I'm also then pouring in a bit of the extra stuff in with it as well, a bit of the magic in with it as well.
Nick, I think what we've seen too, we do use teas for is it's kind of fun to mix like food sources with your extract to see what it looks like, when you put oxygen to it. And that kind of helps you understand what food sources are working. And that's kind of how we use them,
And certainly at the Sorl Food Web at the school, when you're going through the programs, it's great that we're kind of going through all those experiments. We're taking kelps, we're taking fish, we're taking all humics, and we're bubbling for a certain amount of time and just experimenting all
Yep.
these amazing foods to see what works for you in your situation. I can remember going through the program,
Stage 2.
and I think I spent a month trying to get a really great tea and get the ingredients right and the quantity right of the food. And I was always overdosing. I was always putting, far too much food, and coming back in an hour's time and this horrible smell in my office of this stuff that's going anaerobic. What do you reckon, Carla?
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally a huge fan of teas, especially for working with bushes and trees, because we can apply extracts direct to the soil. It's easier. And then the extract end up being too dense for higher succession stage plants. So in this case, the tea are my favorite one to go because it's easier to spray the top and the below surface of the leaves. But like Adam Brilliant said, you have to choose the best time of the day. And also, the food really depends on each group of microbes you have in your compost. So play around, and huge part of the fun is to test different foods. So I think that really depends also on the crop that you're working with, which one you're going to use, or when is good to use both. A lot of times you're going to use both as well.
Brilliant. Let's move on to the next question, Carla, because we've only got 30 minutes. So, are you foliar spraying with compost extract?
Yes. Yes.
Next
We
question.
kind of answered that. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good one for Adam, right?
Yeah, this is a good
Go
one
ahead.
from Adam, but basically from what we were just talking about, I suppose.
Say it again, Nick. Sorry.
Yeah, it's basically this is a follow-on from what our discussion.
Oh, yes.
So, what ingredients would you put into a compost tea brewer, and what is the absolute necessary to avoid?
Well, I think like what you said, Nick, is little goes a long ways in a tea of food. We always, like I said, we've always used like a little bit of fish. We always liked a little bit of kelp. We would always use a little bit of molasses. What am I missing here, Jake? You've done a lot of tests with it.
Yeah, humics, we've used Fulvix, rock dust. We've done some composting and stuff with oats, ground oats, and we'll get oats in to compost with, but I've ground them down to where it's a powder, like an oat flour, and it's a great fungal food. And protozoa numbers seem to really thrive too, but I enjoy using it. It's easy and
yeah, it's a
trying to
good
think of
food
anything
source.
else.
Yeah.
We've used sea crop or ocean minerals. We've done some chitin. We've played around with a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Azomite. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything absolutely necessary to avoid. I mean, if anything that we talked about, but I think that just using small quantities, you don't really need, depending on how much tea you're brewing, but you just don't need a lot of food when it comes to a tea. And it depends on what kind of diversity you're looking for, and if you want more diversity, you're probably going to be using several different microdoses of different food sources.
Yeah, molasses can blow your bacteria up, so you have to be careful with it. But yeah, and I think I don't know if it was Carla that touched on it earlier, but it really depends on what compost you're using too, what microbes are there or what microbes you're trying to feed. So it's gonna vary. But
Yeah, and you touched on a very good point, Jake. The molasses is just going to bloom the bacteria, and you're going to have all that glue being produced and all that beautiful foam that we want to avoid in our tea, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Brilliant.
so
Thanks.
did they get the gold star on this one as well, Nick?
I think so. I think so. Carla, you got a bit of a crackle on your line.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I don't know whether you were able to do anything to try and sort that out. I'll quickly go to the next question. What is the difference between active and inactive bacteria? And does this matter? What do you do to activate inactive bacteria?
So I guess I've never heard it in those terms before, but more I guess bacteria in a dormant state, which any kind of sugar is going to wake them up. Yeah.
I think Jake, it goes from what we were talking about in your presentation, that where it came across to me is that you've got these kind of dormant things going on.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, with an extract, so we
inactive or active. How
Sure.
are you switching them on and off?
Yeah. So when we're applying, we've got a whole line of foods that we've created that are especially formulated to wake everything up and get things going. So in Furrow, we have two different products. One's meant for bacteria, one's meant for fungi. It's carbon sources and there's also some aminos and things like that in there. But so yeah, that's how we're doing it in Furrow, and then we're using it as a compost digester in the fall. So we're mixing things like fish hydrolysate, and we also have another product it's an anaerobic facultative anaerobes. So trying to get those facultative anaerobes to break down that residue. So we typically do a little bit of molasses with it just to kind of boost those numbers, and then some fish as well. We're a dealer for Pacific Grow, and we use a lot of Pacific Grow. So
yeah, the main thing is we just use everything that we do on the biology side is really pretty much in the dormant state, and we always are using foods to help wake that up as we're applying it as a foliar or as a soil application.
Brilliant. Okay, Carla, try your mic out. Do the next question.
Okay, let's try. This question is from Eric. What were the criteria you used for the soil biology tests, if any were conducted, given the scale of your operations? I think this is one very important question. How do you do that on a daily basis? The frequency included.
Yeah. So when we first started doing the testing, what's the name of that test? We're on the Haney test now, but
just a minute.
no.
Are you
So
doing biology?
I'm talking about for the what are those what's the name of the test that we sent to Walters? It was like $500.
Oh, the biomakers.
The biomakers. So we were using B crop test, biomakers, I guess, yeah. So and what that does is it gives you kind of it gives you a good printout. It takes time to get it. It's like a 2-month deal. You take a sample. We also send it off on our own products and stuff, B crop. But we've really started getting into the Haney test, where they kind of are starting to they measure for I call it active carbon. I think they call it something different on there. But those are the two main tests that we're using to do that.
Yep, and then we've got a microscope, so we're constantly pulling soil samples.
Yeah, we do that more.
Looking at soil, looking at roots, soil roots. Yeah, so the microscope will tell you a lot. The biomakers tests are great. They're expensive, but I mean, we might do those a couple times a year, but yeah, microscope will do it'll tell you most of what you need to know. So
yeah, we are biased to say, but the microscope give us fast result, and you can just adjust the management as you go. So
100%, yes.
Absolutely. Great. Next question then, Carla, please. Okay. What are the biggest challenges to using the Sorl food web system at scale in row crops? And how do you and the farmers you work with overcome them, Adam?
That's a great question. Because there's a lot of challenges, but just trying to be synergistic to what the soil food web system is, and you know, um, do everything in your power to try to be as synergistic and not be so antagonistic to what you're trying to accomplish. But using covers, using all these things, but just getting rid of trying to get rid of as much as possible and not failing. So some of this does take time. Um, and like we were talking in the presentation, just trying to simplify things, try not to overcomplicate it because, when you kind of get into this, I mean, it can be like a freaking, you can just, get lost in some of all the information out there. So just trying to really simplify it, understand that our job is to try to build soil and feed the soil. So whether that be with your cover crops, with compost extracts, all that stuff, that's the main goal. And let the soil try to feed the plants, and just really, really take care of the soil. I think when I first got into this, you think it's a combination of a lot of different things, but just really focusing on the soil is your number one goal.
I think a big thing can be change. That can be the hardest part for some people. And you might have, a lot of farms, it's a family situation, and you're
Yeah.
farming with family, and you might be 100% on board, but it's convincing that other person. And that could be the most difficult part sometimes, getting them on board, getting them educated to want to make that change. So.
Yeah. And that just helps being just educated and doing things like what you guys are doing here and just listening to the good thing is there's a lot of information out there and just really choosing and grabbing that good information and trying it. So
I have one question connected to this, to Adam and Jake. What was the major change from the last time you guys were here in a webinar with us for today? What was the biggest enhancement you had?
When was the last webinar?
I don't even remember what year that was. Probably 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Around
Yeah.
that.
So, I think just trying to simplify things. I think I kind of hit that on that big. It's just really trying not to overcomplicate and really just making sure. And this is just trying to make and not be scared to try different things, even though you hear it from everybody else, whether it even could be family members too. Be like, oh, well, you need to use a fungicide. Well, you checked that field. No, I haven't, but everybody else is doing it. Stuff like that. But I think just trying to keep the biggest thing that I probably learned is obviously trying to inoculate your soil any chance that you can, to do whatever you can to really feed your soil. And cover crops are an easy way to do it. I've made different changes on our farm to make that application of cover crops a lot more efficient, so I can actually get more done. I mean that's been my challenge. I think is just trying to understand what your focus is and getting it done. That's the challenge, because especially during harvest, it's a high labor, high hours. I mean, a lot of stuff going on all the time. So you're trying to not only take the crop out, but you're also planting the crop at the same time. So there's just a lot going on and just really trying to be efficient. So when you're making a pass, if you want to do a light till or something like that, you can plant cover crops at the same time. If you want to do a no-till, you're taking your air seeder or your drill just right across that thing. So just understanding what you're wanting to what you're wanting to accomplish and just trying to simplify it. So, and I
That's
do
beautiful.
believe that the diversity of the crops and diversity of your cover crops is extremely important. Diversity of biology, the diversity is really important as well. So,
Yeah, you weren't planting any wheat at the time,
no.
right? So now
So
you
we've done that.
doing
I
away
just,
from
yeah, so
wheat,
more
most of the stuff,
diversity,
and
trying to just streamline more stuff, just be more efficient, but try to keep as much roots in the ground is possible. I think that's important. And inoculating those roots with biology. I mean, it's a win-win situation if you ask me.
Thank you
Brilliant.
so much. That was important.
Hmm.
Okay, with you, Nick.
Okay. So you mentioned there's companies out there that will pay you to use cover crops. And I thought that was just the UK where we have grants for doing this sort of stuff. How does that work? And then there's a follow-up. Do you use any cover crops incentive programs from your state soil and water conservation district? If not, why not? And that's from Bill.
Yeah, those are good questions. So I'll answer the first one. So let's have yeah. So I think some of it depends on carbon. Capturing carbon, I think, is part of it. I don't know what all these companies do. The one that we actually are working with right now is a local grain elevator. And I think it's more of their customers, people that they work with, offsetting carbon, I think credits is kind of part of that. I think there's a lot of other companies out there that are doing it a little bit different. Um, and I know on the bottom question, I have a lot of people that I know that are working um, with the state soil. I am not. And why not? It's just there's a lot of rules and regulations with it that I just kind of want to go plant. We have a lot of stuff going on all the time, and I just kind of want to plant the cover that I want to plant, efficiently, and that's really the only reason why. And it seems like there's a lot of red tape when it comes to that thing, and I just did, I hadn't put the time for it. I'm not saying it's bad, good, or whatever. I just have never done that. I just kind of do my own thing and just kind of plant. And luckily, we work with this grain elevator. We do a lot of non-GMO corn through them. Bartlett is who they are, and they had a program, and we were already kind of working with them before. So it was more of a relationship thing, probably more so than anything. And this seemed to be a little bit easier than the bottom question for us. Less timely.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go to the next one, Carla. We've got plenty of questions still to come.
Oh,
Go for it.
yes. Many good of them. So let's talk a little bit about water. What's your treatment and quality regime? What's your opinion about structured water, breaking up larger water molecule clusters into smaller clusters that better carry nutrients and dissolve salts and help plants assimilate nutrients and moisture? How do you guys
Yeah.
oversee
One,
the
Jake.
water situation?
Yeah, so we go through a lot of water. And our shop has two sources of water. We've got a well, and then we also have the municipal water. The well can't keep up with the amount of water we use. So we use city water. So we run it through a filter, or a series of filters. And then we also treat the water with fulvic acid. So bring that pH down to more neutral, and help with the bicarbonates. We've kind of played around with some structured water stuff, but
on this larger scale, it's been kind of difficult. We are kind of looking into the RO water system. We've got some people that we've worked with, some guys that we're kind of in that boat right now. I have a friend of ours out in Indiana that we know we've talked to on the RO water. We're kind of waiting to hear from him. We have some guys that we know pretty well out in Washington, and they're all about the RO water. So that's the one thing that we're probably going to get into. The one problem we've had people here, the one problem I don't like about the RO water is we have to, they're about 60% of it's going to be gray water, so you're just going to be unusable. So, it's a good question. I do believe water is important. The one thing is what we have done here, which is probably maybe more than some and less than others, but we're always looking at, the quality of our extract and making sure that all looks good, and that's the main goal with it. I think there's other things that we can still do to help improve that, and that's one thing that we'll probably always be looking on. There's a lot of different things about this structured water. We've looked at it, we've played around with it. I don't, I'm not sold on it 100%, but I'm not unsold
Okay,
on it either. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
that's fair. So are you still testing the structured water or not
We,
having time for that now?
well, we did, and we didn't see any results at the end of the day,
Okay.
or any improvements. So we did not, and that could have been the brand that we were using. I mean, I'm not saying, you don't know the answer to that. So we're
Mm-hmm.
still looking at different options. But I think right now we're kind of in the boat of talking to other people that are using different things and really kind of seeing what their results are to kind of feel like what avenue. So I feel like we're really good where we're at, but I still want to improve. And we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of waiting to see with these other guys of what our next move is on the water, I think, at this point in time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And it's about testing. So if you're watching us in any point, have more information on that, join us in the next webinar and we can expand on this.
Awesome.
Next question, Nick, is from Debbie.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed,
So,
Carla. So have you any concerns or issues with using leaves or straw that may have been sprayed? This is a question I always get asked when I use
We
my own feedstocks. And have you had any composting challenges related to your source material?
we don't take anything that's been sprayed most of the time. So,
Hmm.
and if we do, we don't use it for the worms. So we're pretty careful about where the material comes from. We've got some relationships with some local farmers that have some pasture ground that well, and then we've got pasture around the shop here that's not touched, and
Hmm.
um we get all the bales from, or as many bales from it as we'd like. So
Yeah.
we're careful about that. And
The one thing is we don't know is maybe the leaves, but I know there's not a lot of people in town that are spraying their trees. So, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in places, but I don't believe there's a lot that happens here in town. So, but we're getting everybody's leaves from the city, so it'd be kind of hard to know. But,
occasionally we'll get a lot of pine needles, and we try to avoid those.
yep.
Black walnut can be bad as well.
Hmm.
So um,
but
yeah.
you avoid those on the warm composting. What about thermophilic compost stage?
What's that?
The thermophilic compost stage.
Yeah.
Um, we Yeah, I mean
Because all that goes through the thermophilic compost stage.
Mm-hmm.
We don't bring any of that raw material into the vermicompost. It all gets done in the thermophilic. The only
Beautiful.
thing that raw that we bring into the vermicompost would be obviously the seed that we grow the cover crops on, and a little bit of different food that we feed the worms. Like sometimes, we'll feed the oat powder, or something like that if we're going for more fungal, or something like that. So.
Yeah, that's powerful. So you really oversee the entire process from the beginning. That's
Yep.
that's beautiful.
And that's one of the reasons why we do all the thermophilic, just to, to heat it up, to get rid of pathogens, weed seeds, all that type of stuff. So that way, when we're bringing
Mhm.
it into the worm environment, which is obviously not hot, not heated, so you're bringing all that's already done, cured, and then you shouldn't have any problems there, is the theory behind all of that. And we haven't, at this point in
Yep.
time, but hopefully not. So.
Brilliant. Carla, let's go for the next question.
It's from LA. Can you please provide a bit more of information on the type of pump you use? You call it orifice tubing or Orpheus tubing? There was a back and forth question there in the chat.
Yeah, it's called Orificeless tubing. So, or some people call it micro tubing. We get ours from a company called Ag Excel. It's in Nebraska, and they're like fertilizer starter system equipment. And they also sell like and then on our planter, we have one has a diaphragm pump on it, and it works really, really well. It's a hydraulic pump, and then we just have a pump, just wheel driven pump. Really, we haven't had a lot of problems with pumps too bad when you're messing around with extract. And then the pumps we use here at the shop, they're just electric pumps,
2 inch, yeah.
2 inch or 3 inch electric pumps. But that's the thing. I think the diaphragm pump is probably the easiest on all of the, if you're going to use something that's going to be the easiest on the biology, is probably a diaphragm pump. But also, we're messing around with extracts, so you're dealing with spores, and you're not dealing with fungi that's grown out that you're too worried about chopping them. So we've done a lot of testing. When Todd would come here, we would test through our extract at the end of, we go through all the pumps and test it after the pump, and and had good luck. So really, we haven't had too many problems with. We were usually just working with guys that's already got a pump, and we're trying to work with what they already have, and it hasn't seemed to be too big of an issue on the extract side of things.
Right. So just quickly to follow that up while we're talking about pumps, very quickly, Adam. So your pumps, you don't think from centrifugal pumps to diaphragm pumps to roller pumps, you don't think that there's much of a difference between any of those? Because that's certainly where I am, everyone's talking about whether one pump is better than the other pump.
I know. I think you can get caught in the weeds on it, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
I think we just try to work with guys that, with what they already have. And the good thing is you can test it before it and after it and look at it under the scope, and you can really see. The one thing that we did do is, if you make a tea, there's a big difference, when it comes to that, because you're growing stuff out. But on the extract, you know, I don't believe that is a big a concern.
Beautiful. It's a
But
very common question.
a diaphragm pump is probably, I mean, if you're going to have the best, that's what I would say the best is. You can work with a lot of other ones. So
Beautiful. Thank you so
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you very much. Good one. Okay. How much do the farmers you work with expect to save? That's a good question. Per acre on chemical inputs. What a question.
Yeah.
And does this method make them more profitable?
Well, that is a great question. So, it depends on kind of where you're at, you know, like what the farmer's already truly spending and what they're already doing, comes into effect with that, So obviously, if they're doing non-GMO already, you're not going to save them that. If they're already cutting and doing some stuff, you're not going to save. But if they're coming at you, every farmer's different, and that's a great question. It's a really difficult one to answer. But I think that right now, with the way agriculture is right now, everybody's trying to look to save as much as they can. So, I think a lot of people have already gotten away from, they're doing more rotation. There used to be a lot of corn on corn around here. And that was a lot more costly adventure. So now they're rotating from soybeans to corn. Soybeans are generally giving you 30 to 40 pounds of nitrogen per year anyways, residual from planting a legume. So, it's a great question, but I mean, obviously they're wanting to save something. So, just really depends on what situation that they're in. I think one of the biggest things you can start somebody off on if you start using biology is you can work with them on a different method on the nitrogen side of things. I'm not saying you can go out and hog wild and go cut like crazy, but I think you can split applications and you can trim back. If somebody's doing a 1-to-1, I think that's a good place to start. And then I think planting cover crops and maybe getting some income from that, but that'll also help suppress a lot of different weeds. So maybe you're able to cut, your herbicide pass, or maybe one. I know we got some guys that are doing some pretty amazing jobs with some of that. Some not even spraying any, herbicide. So, um, It's a great
Brilliant.
question, and I wish I could do a better job of answering that. It's a loaded one.
It is an
It is.
absolutely loaded question. I could see you grinning when I was asking it because I get asked that all the time. So,
Yeah.
how much is it going to save us? Right, guys, look, we're out of time, aren't we, Carla? So we need to
Yes.
move on and close this webinar for tonight. Let's move on, Carla. If we go to the one of the final slides.
Yeah, just a second.
It's a gentle reminder, guys, that we've got our 4th webinar coming up, which is our house party on the 31st of July. Please, please, please come along. It'll be a great evening, I can guarantee it. These house parties are just great fun. And you get so many different mentors coming in to support and help and guide and listen to what everyone's got to say.
Yep, I already have everything settled down for next week. My calendar is full block. So make sure to block your agenda, put a note, message, whatever you need to be there with us. Do not forget to check the time zone you are. So for me, it will be 9 a.m. For Nick, will be 5 p.m. So you're gonna come and have some tea with Nick and some late breakfast with me. And all the other mentors spread around the globe. And we had amazing last house parties, and we hope to see you there as well, Adam and Jake. If you can, please come join us and bring all the questions, all the topics, and let's spread the love and the information about soil science.
Brilliant, Carla. Thank you for that. So, guys, thank you very much indeed. And a massive thank you to the almighty Adam York and the wizard of compost that is Jake. Thank you, guys, so very, very much indeed. Carla,
Yes,
absolute pleasure, guys. Thank you. Carla, always great to work with you. Thank you very much indeed for being you. Thank you for our backup team, Sammy and the crew behind the scenes, Alison and everyone else. We love you all to bits. And remember, guys, you can follow us on TikTok and all the usual socials, and you can watch what we've just done tonight back onto YouTube whenever you like. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday, don't we, Carla?
Yes, we do. Same bad time, same bad channel. So see you guys next week. Thank you so much.
Take care, guys.